My dad was a Norwegian from the cornfields of Iowa. During the Depression, my dad went to California. The state police stopped him at the border, wouldn't let him cross the state line. He turned right and ended up in Spokane, Washington, where he met my mother. And my mother was an Irish lass, born and raised in Spokane, Washington. I'm one of 5 children. My dad, he went to work for Kaiser Aluminum Corporation in Spokane, Washington. And in 1952, he was transferred to the Kaiser Aluminum plant in Chalmette, Louisiana. And he took the whole family down there. Trust me, it was a cultural shock, but I got used to it. And I fell in love with New Orleans. I spent 30 years in New Orleans. I had spent 20 years in the insurance business. A friend of mine from New Orleans was in the Tasty Donut business. He had a Tasty Donut franchise, and he was offered a chance to get a Popeyes famous fried chicken franchise. And he wanted the job, but he didn't have the money. So he came to me. I didn't have the money, but I knew guys that had money. So the 3 of us got together, went to Bob, and we bought the franchise for the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. In 1979, we had a gas crisis. Interest rates went to 20%. Nobody was doing good. We ended up selling the Popeyes. But I bought a Popeyes in Louisville, Kentucky. That didn't go over so good. After the Popeyes venture, I decided I'm going to go in the shrimp business. On the Gulf Coast of America and the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of shrimp are caught, they're called bay shrimp. They go out and in shallow waters, they catch a lot of shrimp. Well, they don't do that anyplace else. They all go deep water. So I figured if we design a boat that would go in the bays outside of Paramaribo, Suriname, that we could catch a lot of shrimp. So I had Halter Marine in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, designed and made a 40-foot shrimp boat for me. We put it on a ship, shipped it to Suriname. I flew down there with a couple of guys from Mississippi, and we started in the shrimp business. Big mistake. We're out at sea in the big bay, and we had the nets out. We trolled for a couple of hours. We go bring the nets back in, and we had a hard time getting them in. It's full of shrimp. We're millionaires. We finally got the nets in, old refrigerators, old stoves, big tires. I mean, every piece of junk you could possibly find on the floor of the ocean and made it into that net. But we did get 500 pounds of shrimp out of that ordeal, which I think at the time we got $1 a pound. A guy by the name of Desi Budarest was a sergeant in the Army, and he overthrew the Suriname government. And the hotel I'm staying in, I was at the bar. The other 2 guys that came over with me, they had graciously told me, "Dale, you're crazy," and they had left a couple days earlier. I was thrown in prison. And a couple days later, a real nice guy, and God, I wish I could remember his name, that I had befriended, got me out of jail. I went back to the hotel, got my stuff, and went to the airport. Got on a plane, flew back to Miami, and when I got off that airplane, I kissed that ground, swore up and down I'd never do business outside the United States again, and I won't. Although things didn't go right, I fell in love with the food business. I couldn't understand a lot of restaurants. Back in the New Orleans era back then, all your restaurateurs drove Lincoln Continentals and had filthy restaurants. And I just couldn't get over the fact that if they cleaned up their restaurants, how they could do good. I'm serious. If you went in the restaurant business, had a clean restaurant, did everything right, what could you end up doing? And I said, instead of going in the chicken business, what if I went in the steak business? And my brother was a beef salesman for New City Packing Company out of Chicago, Illinois. And he got me hooked up with the beef company. And of all places, I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and opened up a steakhouse. I figured nobody would want to go eat steak at Dale Francis Wamstad's. So I took Dale Francis and made it Del Frisco's. And I opened up Del Frisco Steakhouse in Louisville, Kentucky. Didn't have much money, had to get partners. After 6 months, I sold out my share. I moved back to New Orleans, swearing I'd never have another partner, and opened up Del Frisco's on the West Bank in Gretna, Louisiana. We opened in 1981. In 1982, I'm in the kitchen, and a server comes in and said, "A guy by the name of Warren LaRuth is sitting in your dining room dining." He was a legend in New Orleans. Everybody knew Warren LaRuth. He was known nationally. I go out there and "How are you, sir? Thank you for coming." We said some genial things. 3 weeks later, he came back by himself and he ate again. He says, "You got a minute?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "You want some help?" "Oh, Mr. LaRuth, I'd love it if you could help me. Let me see what I can do." A couple of weeks later, I get a knock at the kitchen door. I open the kitchen door, and there's Warren LaRuth. Comes in, we shake hands. He said, "Here, look at this." He had 8 pages of yellow legal paper, handwritten, everything handwritten. He hands it to me and he says, "Let's start over." I mean, what can you say about Warren LaRuth? He was the first recipient of the Menu Masters Award. In the 60s, he went into New Orleans, Louisiana, which is renowned as being one of the best restaurant cities in the world. And in 2 years, he was the top restaurant in the New Orleans area. LaRuth's. He was wonderful. Everything about the guy, the most pleasant, food fanatic in the world. His recipes were just incredible. He was very well respected. Popeye's famous fried chicken. You like the red beans and rice? That was Warren LaRuth. 7 C's, you ever get the 7 C's seasons? That was Warren LaRuth. By 1983, we were playing to a full house. We were open lunch and dinner. We were doing great. I wanted to get another Del Frisco's. My goal was to get 5 Del Frisco's. So I found the Del Frisco site in a community called Spring, Texas, which is outside of Houston. And I found a place in Dallas, and the best move I ever made was I moved to Dallas. I closed the place in New Orleans. 5 of the people that worked with me in New Orleans wanted to come to Dallas and work at the Del Frisco's in Dallas. And one of them was the night manager and bartender by the name of Colleen Keating, who was the daughter of my good friend Chicken June Keating, who I had never even winked at her in all the time she worked there. Well, we opened up the Del Frisco's on Lemon Avenue. It took us 6 months to get the place ready because it had been vacated. It was a junk place, but we fixed it all up nice and pretty. We opened up a Del Frisco's in Dallas, and before you know, I fell madly in love with her. And I've been married to her 34 years, and I got 3 great children. So good things happen. In the insurance business, no matter who you meet, you want to be friends with them because you want to sell them insurance. You got to go to them. They don't come to you. So there's a lot of interaction that goes on. What amazed me about the food business, you open the place, you put the food on the table, people come in. I didn't have to go out there. I had the market, but people came in. I was so appreciative that anybody that came in Del Frisco's, I'd stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning writing thank you letters to everybody. And business kept going up and up. So then I had the Del Frisco's on Lemon, and by that time I had the Del Frisco's on Beltline and Addison. I just kept doing what we were doing. Fresh breads, great beef out of Chicago, great staff, polite hostesses. It was a whole ball of wax. Made them feel comfortable when they came in. And I kept writing those thank you letters. I decided to close both Del Frisco's and create the one Del Frisco's on Spring Valley, which by that time, we owned the property. You walked into a nice lobby, a nice waiting area. The bar was right there when you walked in. A lot of ornate detail in the bar. Beautiful mirrors, beautiful wood. Then you had your main dining room off to the right. You had go up the stairs and you had dining rooms upstairs. With the other two locations, we were doing $7 million. Addison was doing $3 million, and 11th Avenue was doing $4.5 million. So when we opened on Spring Valley, we blew them away. It was unreal. I told my staff, I don't know if we're prepared for this, but get ready. We packed them in from day one. In September of 1995, my longtime friend and longtime attorney, Houston Oppenheimer, he called me one day and he said, sit down. Are you sitting? 2 weeks before, the 21 Club in New York, somebody had purchased that place for $21 million. He said, you've been offered $23 million for the Del Frisco. Say it again, Houston. You've been offered $23 million for the Del Frisco's. We were stunned. If I'd have needed to sell it, it would have been a different story. I didn't have to sell. If they bought it, all right. If they didn't buy it, it was all right too. We had a going business that was very successful. So when you go into a business deal with that type of attitude, good things can happen. So it was the largest ever paid for a single restaurant. The offer came from Jamie Calder, the chief executive officer for Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon. The offer was too good to pass up. I was obsessed in the food business when I got in it, and I'm still today. You want to come upstairs in my office to see the thousands of cookbooks I have? I'm never satisfied. How do you teach being kind to customers? How do you teach being a raving maniac in the kitchen, but the kitchen guys love you because when you say, you pieces of shit, they all look up with big smiles on their face because they know I love them. Because you may do things in this restaurant as a waiter, but you're never going to talk down to the kids in the kitchen, the guys in the kitchen. They rule. They're the ones that work their butts off from the minute they come in till the minute they leave. They're the backbone of any restaurant. It's a wonderful business. I'm the luckiest guy in the world.